Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean, and it's been a hot minute since I've uploaded here on this channel, and I realized that I had this whole video already planned out and scripted, so I thought why not just go ahead and make it now. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 10 years later. Wow, I'm f***ing old, it's been 10 years. Okay, just for some brief context, Plants vs. Zombies was one of the most iconic tower defense games pretty much ever that was released by PopCap in May of 2009, and it is absolutely a fantastic game. I covered that game in more detail before on the channel, but it struck a really amazing balance between thought-provoking gameplay and memorable character designs. That game did occasionally run into the issue where I found it to be a little bit monotonous to play, but that never really detracted from my overall enjoyment. Anyway, PopCap was later bought out by the big bad wolf of the gaming industry, Electronic Arts. A few years later, they were discussing ways to bring the IP to a broader audience, as a single-player tower defense game was considered perhaps a little bit niche. The game was successful, but there was seemingly some untapped potential there. So they decided to create a multiplayer-driven third-person shooter game, and which is the subject of today's video. Now, the rudimentary basis for this game is still similar to the original. You have plants defending a garden from hordes of zombies which come in waves. However, where before you carefully selected how you went about planting the plants in order to prepare for the waves, now you are the plants fighting the zombies yourself. In a way, this game is a much more lighthearted and cartoony version of a typical shooting game that would have been prevalent at the time. This also helped this game's case, as kids who wanted to play a shooting game would fall into this game's age range thanks to the cartoony wackiness. And somehow I never really played this game growing up. Every once in a while I remember playing it at a friend's house, but I just didn't really ever play this. So before I talk about the other two games in the future in which I'm a little bit more familiar with, I decided it might be best to see where this little Garden Warfare sub-series of Plants vs. Zombies began with this entry. So there is a slight problem with reviewing this game in the great 2024, because this is a game so clearly built with multiplayer in mind, it makes it harder to really play this game with its original vision in mind. Many of the people who are into this have moved on to the other two games in the series by now, so that should certainly be kept in mind. This game does still have local multiplayer via split screen and single player, so that is still there. Anyway, right away, this game looks absolutely fantastic. Without even getting into the game itself, this is such a fun and smooth experience. This really does bring over the charm and personality that the original game held in great fashion. The sound design here is also spot on. Every time you take out a zombie, a little money sounding sound effect will come on, which is always really satisfying to listen to. I mean, just in general, the remixes of music from the original game combined with the actual sound effects that you hear during combat all really adds to the experience. When playing the Garden Ops mode, which is your typical zombie survival thing, you get the choice between 4 different plants. You got your pea shooter, which is the most standard one, particularly being useful with mid-range combat. The sunflower, which is the medic, ideal for multiplayer with being able to heal your teammates. The chomper, which can burrow into the ground and is strong in close encounters. And the cactus, which is the sniper plant in this game. I like how the cactus actually has some purpose this time around, unlike the original game. Each of the characters also has an assortment of special abilities with a cooldown in order to spruce up the gameplay too. This keeps the combat from feeling too monotonous and keeps you using your brain the whole time. It would be easy for this to quickly feel like you were just playing on autopilot without these special moves, but thankfully them being here really helps to mitigate that issue. Also, each of the plants has a ton of unlockable cosmetics, which is a neat addition. Unfortunately, this was a part of EA's excuse to cram microtransactions into this game, which this wasn't the most egregious implementation of in-app purchases in here, more on that in a second though. Thankfully, you can unlock stuff without spending any real money. The game does reward you with coins while playing, and you can spend those coins in a shop which holds sticker packs. These packs give you unlockables like said cosmetics and plant companions that can be used during the actual game. Yeah, so while playing Garden Ops, you may notice these pots all over the place. In these, you can plant little miniature plants which aid you in some way. These all reference back to the first 2 games in the series, and in concept, I really like this. Allowing the player to strategically place these in order to fend off the zombies sounds really awesome. However, the way they went about this is the main negative that I have with this game. So you get these plants from the sticker shop that I mentioned before, however this bothers me more than the cosmetics did. At least with spending coins on cosmetics, it isn't impacting the gameplay in any way, it isn't helping you in game, it's simply just to make your characters look cool. However, by charging coins in order to get these mini plants, the game takes away what could have been a really cool and clever implementation of the whole sun system from the original game. Maybe in a garden ops mode, you start out with a certain amount of sun, with each plant in the pot section costing a differing amount of sun. Each round you accumulate sun just like in the original game, in which you can then spend accordingly. Maybe the player could have customized the amount of sun they start with and get every round, I don't know, maybe some kind of difficulty setting. Yes, I know you don't have to spend any real money. I didn't spend any of my money while recording at all, but it's still there. In something like a free-to-play mobile game, at least you didn't have to pay an entrance fee just to play the game itself, but on a home console game, this is much more annoying to me. And by the way, this same kind of thing goes on with the next two games in the series, so it isn't really exclusive to this specific entry. Electronic Arts is pretty notorious for this kind of thing anyway, so I can't say that I'm all too surprised with this game having a feature like this. I just think the whole mini plant system is a shell of what it could have been. Once again, just to reiterate though, I know it's not required before I get any comments about that. Anyway, aside from the garden ops mode, there is also a multiplayer mode where you can either play the before mentioned content, or you can do a team deathmatch type of deal where you either control the plant or zombie side. This was interesting as there are 4 zombies to control, each with their own abilities as well. Generally, I stuck with the foot soldier on the zombie side due to its pretty standard sense of gameplay, and on the plant side, my go-to was either the pea shooter or cactus. Basically, everything was really fun to control though, and was designed with a lot of personality. However, admittedly, I was never extremely good at this game. And by the way, I didn't really play a whole lot of the multiplayer because I switched from Xbox to PlayStation in the middle of this video being made, and I forgot to finish recording the footage before that since I don't really have the game now, so I can't really get more of the multiplayer footage than I already had, so my bad. I feel like regardless, this game isn't really all too ideal for multiplayer anymore since there are 2 more newer entries that greatly expand upon the gameplay, so yeah. This does also bring up another little thing that annoys me about the first entry in this sub-series. It is so obvious that EA pushed the online gameplay first and foremost, which is perfectly fine, but in this case they went with a DRM approach, meaning that you have to be online in order to play this game. Even the single player content was really through a private online lobby that was set to invite only. This game is really not meant for single player. For some people this is no issue at all, which if that's the case then more power to you. However, to me a game like this would have been really cool to have some sort of single player content to keep me coming back. I vividly remember Garden Warfare 2 having stuff like that, and while I haven't played it, Battle for Neighborville does have that as well. Honestly, just to be real, I had a really hard time pinpointing how I feel about this game. This is one of those cases where I feel like the follow-ups completely make it obsolete to play now. Like, for what it is, it's a perfectly fun and creative third-person shooter based around an incredibly popular IP, but when the future releases expand upon it immensely, it begs the question of why would I play this now in 2024? And like I said, I did have fun. It's not like this was a bad game, far from it. There was loads of content and ideas brought over from the original game which I enjoyed, the visuals were absolutely lovely and vibrant, the music was great, the gameplay felt smooth. There may have still been a lot of little things that I wasn't a fan of, like the lack of single player content and the microtransactions, however neither of those things made me dislike the experience at all. I think that this is more so a really good starting point for a series that now there isn't really a point to come back to other than nostalgia than anything else. Also, like I said, I wasn't able to fully record this game since I sold my Xbox before finishing recording like a f***ing idiot. However, I went through basically everything the game had to offer, and I had already determined what my thoughts on the gameplay loop was, so I don't think that it's that big of a deal. Anyway, the TLDR is fun game, Garden Warfare 2 is better though. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, peace out.